three speakers are LePage. I've been after Pete for ever so long. He is like an awesome, I heard him talk at PWA Roadshow last year, and I've been like after him for the longest time to come to an overview, so I'm super happy he's here. Then Jeff Bosnick, who needs no introduction because we drag him every chance we get. And we're going to show off that service workers and work blocks, everything starts and ends with him. And Marika just walked in. Hi. So she's going to talk about security. So we've got our first lineup set up on concepts, and I'm going to stop now and then go that.
All right. Cool. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody, and welcome. This is a really great opportunity for us to get to interact with you and talk about some of the great new things that are coming to the web, and talk about progressive web apps. My name's Pete. I'm a developer advocate. One of my coworkers, Paul Lewis, grabbed this screenshot of me. It looks like I'm about to say the word FUD. That's what I was about to say when I had this photo taken. But I've been working on the web since essentially I started my career. I think the web is probably the most exciting and interesting platform because what it does is it doesn't require you to have any special hardware. You don't have to go buy a Mac. You don't have to buy a Windows PC. You can start on whatever device you have, and you can start developing on it, or you can start using it. So people in developing worlds, when they get their first mobile device, their first mobile phone, can be on the web. It doesn't matter, and we can reach them with the stuff that we do. So I think the web is sort of the democratizing platform of the world, and it's pretty freaking awesome. But when I think about how the web has changed over the last 15, 20 years as I've played with it and used it and been on it, I can see sort of two major events that have happened that have really changed things. The first was when we started to do things with Ajax. Instead of having to load a page, look at it, then load the next page, look at it, then load the next page and look at it. We got that Ajax pattern where we could replace stuff in line, you could dynamically change stuff. It became kind of like, oh, all of a sudden, we've got a few more steps. And to me, we're at that place today, right? So we went from this idea of having to install maps. You had to put the CD in the computer. You had to wait for it to install. It didn't update if a new street got added or anything like that. If you wanted to move a map, you actually had to change page. Now you're just like, oh, I'm just going to move this around, and it's kind of magical, right? So we went from that to an experience that is pretty good. And depending on how you look at it, mobile has overtaken desktop usage. It goes back even a couple of years. I think this chart shows it in 2014, right? So mobile usage has been climbing drastically. But think about your experiences on the mobile web versus on the desktop. And I'm going to go back to that Maps example for a second, right? Who uses Maps in their web browser on their desktop or laptop or on a real computer? Put your hand up. Okay, now, who opens up on your mobile phone, who opens up the browser and goes to Maps? There's usually 3 or 4, but realistically, you open the Maps app and use the Maps app, right? We've gotten so used to using apps on our device, on our mobile devices. Well, you know, that's one of those things that kind of isn't as much fun. It lacks features for developers, it lacks experiences for users, and that's what progressive web apps is kind of about, is changing that. It's not just kind of about, it is about changing that. It's about changing that experience. But if you look at some of it, there's some really interesting stats about how users are using their mobile devices. They only spend about 13% of their time on the mobile web on their devices. The rest of that 87% of time is spent in different apps. Now, you know, you could maybe hear me say that and go, huh, why am I sitting here if I should be going and building a native app then, right? Because that's what this chart says. Well, it does say that, except for one thing. 80% of that time is spent in 3 apps, okay? Now, everybody in this room is probably a little outside the standard deviation of number of apps you've installed on your phone. Think about your parents, your partner, your other family members. How many apps have they installed on their phone in the last 6 months? Probably like very few, right? And they probably use Facebook, they probably use their banking app and maybe a messaging app. Like, they don't use that many apps. And then, the other scary one is the number of apps that they install every month. On average, it's about 0. Now, how you get about 0, I'm not quite sure. I think it's that calculus thing where the limit of x equals, and I don't like math. But number of users install about 0 apps. So, not worth maybe putting a ton of effort into an app, because the chances of winning that app lottery, where you become that one developer who gets 100 million users or even 1 million users on your app, is kind of gone these days. You have to have a pretty significant app in order to get a huge number of users. Now, on the other side of this, the number of sites that users go to every month is huge. It's up over a couple of hundred. All right? Just think about your experience. Now, again, you're probably outside the standard deviation, right? You probably go to a few more websites than the average user a month. But users go to a ton of websites every month. So, we spent the first couple years that I was at Google really focusing on the mobile experience. And I think we've got the mobile experience better, right? Most sites work. You don't have to pinch and zoom quite as much as you used to. But when we started thinking, how do we make that next step better? And so we thought, okay, well, what if we think about it on this compatibility and reach axis? So the web has a ton of reach, right? You can get anybody on any device, anywhere, anytime, awesome. But the capabilities that the web has are kind of limited. It's really safe, right? Like, I know that I'm probably not going to get some malware installed on my device just by going to a page, but if I install something, I don't know about that, right? So the web is pretty safe, but the native has a lot more capabilities. I can set push notifications, I can have it work offline, I can do, all kinds of things. So our question really was, how do we do that? How do we get the web to have the reach that it has, but all the capabilities that the native platform has, and give users the experience they expect when they open an app, when they open any experience on a device. And PWAs should have that integrated experience. They should feel like, hey, I want to install this on my home screen. I want to use this. I want this to be an integrated part of my life every day. If they want it to be. And it should just happen automagically. It should just work. And it means as developers, we have to do a little bit more, but we get a lot of neat stuff. So if you remember sort of just a few things from today, I usually say remember one thing, but you're going to hear so many good things today. But if you remember just a few things, remember that progressive web apps isn't like one core technology or one specific experience, but it means really radically improving that experience, building a user experience that users love, that users just feel, this works, this is natural, I like this, I want this, this is how the web should be. Remember that. Progressive web apps are really about improving that experience. So in order to build that new experience, we really need to think about sort of 3 pieces and 3 things that make the web better. The first one is reliable, right? You tap an installed native app on your phone, you tap that app icon, launch it, you're offline. You're in the subway between stations. It probably works. You at least get something. You might get a, hey, I'm offline, hang on one sec, or maybe you'll get cache data, but it at least works. You open the browser between subway stations, and you get the offline dinosaur, or you get a PFO, or you get something that is not exactly useful to you, right? So the thing that we really need to do is fix that as one piece, right? So making sure that experiences work reliably, and they work fast in terms of they load reliably. no matter what kind of network connection I'm on, whether I'm on a nice, fast LTE connection, or I was just in Africa, I was getting GPRS speeds at some points, right? So I should still be able to have a good experience on the web using that if I've already been to that site before. Now, thinking back when I first went online and used the web, I used one of these things. Great, it was kind of awesome, right? Except for the fact that you put the whole house online, right? So I'd have to, yell upstairs, hey guys, I'm using the modem, don't pick up the phone. And sure enough, I'd go online, I'd start downloading something, and I was online. Great. But then somebody would pick up the phone and I'd suddenly be offline, right? Because it would destroy my network connection. Well, with desktops, with today's day and age, you're always online essentially. If we're living here in New York City or anywhere in the US or sort of the first world, most people have a permanent online connection that works. Except for this thing, right? This thing often has a network connection, but sometimes it doesn't. I get this, right? This kind of sucks. I love this little dinosaur. He's super cute, or she's super cute. But, yeah, it's kind of annoying. Playing the game is fun, but that's it. I don't want to go offline for the game. Funny little fact, they actually had to put into Chrome administrator flag to turn the game off, because in schools, kids were actually putting their computers, their Chromebooks, into offline mode so they could play the game during class, so schools can turn the game off. So, we don't want to see this. But the other annoying thing about this device is sometimes my phone's going, hey, I've got a connection, we're good to go. And I try to go to a page and it's like, haha, screw you. No, we're not online. And it usually doesn't say screw you, it's usually a lot more less polite than that, right? It's Li-Fi, it's that experience of, hey, I think I have a connection, but no, not really, and it takes forever for it to go, oh, no, sorry, we're toast here. And then it says, yeah, okay, we don't have a connection. Anything like that. This is one of those experiences that users don't care. They don't give a flying. It just worked beautifully. Now, the web does kind of have a bad rep for that, especially on mobile, and there are a bunch of things that we can do to fix that. We're not going to spend a lot of time today really focusing on that, but check out developers.google.com/web/fundamentals/performance. We've got a lot of stuff there that really dives into how to understand the performance of your app and also how things work. But I want to focus on the fast loading bit for a second, because that's also really important. There's a stat from Sosada, I never remember how to pronounce this company, but it essentially says after about 3 seconds, 20% of your users have gone, right? So time is money. After 9 seconds, 58% of their users. So this is a chart that they came out with that's kind of interesting. The DoubleClick team released some numbers last fall that are even more frightening. That after 3 seconds, 53% of your people are gone. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Half the room just walked out, right? Now you think about that of users on your page. Hit the load, wait 3 seconds, and half the people who were there are gone, right? They don't even hit your analytics. If your page is taking more than 3 seconds, think how many people are just bouncing away and not even seeing it. So, making sure your experience is fast and loads fast is really important, all right? Are you going to talk about Lighthouse at all? Yep. Awesome. Jeff is going to talk about Lighthouse, which is kind of amazing and a good way to have a look at some of your speed experiences and understand some of the things there. And then finally, the last one that I'll mention is really that engaging bit, right? And we need to be able to re-engage with our users. Today, on the web, if a user comes to your site and they look around and then they leave, okay, no way to get a hold of them later, unless maybe they signed up for an email. And then you're going to send them an email. They're going to go, screw you, I don't want spam, right? Because that's really kind of annoying. So being able to re-engage with users is really important. And when I think about engagement, there's 3 pieces or 3 components that we need to really fix to make web apps much more engaging, bring users in. The first is getting on the home screen. getting into their experience so that you're under their nose, so that they think, oh yeah, I want to go check that. I trust that. I'm going to go there. And I know it's going to work. Users have learned over time, if I open the web browser when I'm on an airplane, when I'm on the subway, whenever I'm in an offline scenario, it's just not going to work. But if I touch that app on my home screen, it works. It's going to work. So we need to get that experience where it works on the home screen. Second, it's immersive. It looks and feels like an app. It can take up the whole screen. We don't necessarily have to have the address bar on there. We're able to have experiences like a splash screen while things load, or themed colors as we task through our different apps. And the third one is about making sure that we can re-engage with our users. Sending web push notifications. Being able to turn that user who comes back once every 30 days into a user who comes back maybe once a week, or maybe even once a day. Now, notifications have existed on the mobile platform forever, but as developers for the web, this is brand new for us. We can now do this. We can do some really cool things with this. Now, I will ask, please use it responsibly, because it's really easy to screw this one up and piss your users off and do all kinds of really bad, nasty things. But if you do this well, you will have users who will come back, who will be very happy, and will love what you have to do, and will be engaged with you. You'll be able to, hopefully, if this is what your app does, monetize them so that they give you money. They're happy to give you money. You're happy to take their money. And you're a happy camper, right? So web push notifications are one of those cool things, and really do offer a whole lot of interesting new use cases for the web. So enough blah, blah, blah. Let's take a look at a progressive web app. These are just screenshots that I took a couple of weeks ago. Doing a video is a little bit harder to show this properly, so I'm going to show you some screenshots. This is Twitter's mobile app. They launched this about 2-3 months ago now. This is in fact, their most used Twitter client today. More than their installed apps, more than any of their other stuff. This is their most used mobile client. So if you go to mobile.twitter.com, or if you just go to twitter.com on your phone, you get this experience. So when you first go, it looks just like the normal Twitter experience, right? Yeah, hey, I'm in my browser, I've got the address bar, all that kind of stuff. La-da-da, yeah, I can go look through all my stuff. And after using it for a little bit, Chrome pops up this little notification here, this toast at the bottom that says, hey, do you want to add Twitter to your home screen? And you can go and click add, and sure enough, Twitter gets added to my home screen. So today, it shows up in Android, it shows up on your home, let me try that again. It shows up on your home screen. In a future release in Chrome, it's also going to show up in your task launcher as well, and be listed as a normal installed app. So now, if I click it and launch, I get a splash screen experience. Now, okay, splash screens are kind of annoying, but the reason we've got a splash screen experience there is so that we're showing the user something rather than just a plain white screen while the app is loading. Well, everything is spinning up, well, all of your JavaScript is all being loaded and all that kind of stuff. So you get a splash screen, and you can control how this looks and all that kind of stuff, and then it's loaded. Now, it looks just like an installed app. If I didn't tell you, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this Twitter client and the actual Twitter client that's installed on your phone. You know, you've got all the standard stuff, you've got the buttons, you can go add, you can go tweet. If I go to my task switcher, it shows up as a top-level app. And in fact, Twitter's I wish they picked their Twitter blue, but this bar here is actually defined as their theme color. So they can choose the color that they want so that it matches with all their other stuff. They chose gray because that's how they went, but kind of shows up badly in demos. But you get to pick all that kind of stuff. So you get to see, hey, this feels like a fully installed app. It feels like every experience that I would expect to have. They also can send web push notifications. So you get that whole experience of, hey, somebody just tweeted at me, or I got a direct message or something like that. So I'm like, hey, Chrome developers was like, hey, Pete, what's going on? So I can go, I can open it up, I can look at it. It's a full system level notification. I can be like, oh, okay, great, yep. clicking on it takes me right to the notification message. So I can go in and be able to use it just like I would expect, right? So you get that full experience that I would expect from Twitter's native client using the web. In fact, I don't use Twitter very often. If you go look at my Twitter feed, you'll see. But I do watch to see what's going on, and I tried for Google I/O. I said, well, I'm just going to uninstall the native app and see how the web app works. And it was great. I got to do everything. It worked perfectly for me. And I know a number of other people on my team did that as well, and it worked perfectly for them. And they're adding new features. They're doing a bunch of stuff. In fact, if you want to go and tweet and add a picture, you can go and say, hey, I want to use this. You can open up the image and be like, hey, I want to use an image, or I want to take an image, or take a video, and go from there. Now, here's the crazy one. I'll hold questions for the end, if that's okay. The Android app, if you get the installed APK, it's 24 megs in size. The iOS app, if you go download the IPA or whatever iOS has, it's about 214 megabytes in size. The progressive web app, it's about 600K. So if you're a user who has a low-end device or who cares a lot about how much space is on their device and how much is being used for what, which one are you going to pick? Right? If I'm limited in the amount of space that I can download things, wow, that 600K is pretty awesome. We did a team trip to India a couple months ago to talk to developers in India and talk about progressive web apps. And we went to buy a couple of cell phones while we were there, and it was a really fascinating experience because it was very different than what we do here. There, you go to buy a phone, and if you're buying a low-end phone, you go up to the vendor and you're like, I want to buy this phone. And they're like, okay, great. What apps do you want on it? And you say, I want this, 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 and this. And they stick a USB cable into your phone, they install those apps, and then you never install anything again. And then users, for the most part, will only connect to Wi-Fi when it's available. They don't use data on their phone because it's so expensive to be able to do that. So they'll use little bits of data. They explicitly turn their data on and off when they want it and need it. So for these users, this opens up a really interesting new opportunity for you to be like, I can now get a whole new market of users just by reducing the size of my experience. Now, okay, how does Twitter measure success of something? They measure it in the number of tweets sent. Their progressive web app, they saw a 65% increase in pages per session and a 75% increase in tweets sent. I don't know, 75% increase in your main metric seems like a pretty good increase to me. I think my boss would be happy if I came in and was like, hey, 75% more things happening. So for them, this has been phenomenally successful, right? And they're continuing to work on this. They're adding new features. They're doing some really neat new stuff with the media capture API, which gives them full access to the complete control of the media capture devices, so the camera and microphone, so that they can do full res photos. They can actually get the raw data off the camera sensor. Things like that. They're doing some really neat things. Now, Lancome has also done some interesting things. They launched a progressive web app earlier this year, back about 2 months ago as well. I/O was about 2 months ago. Convenient how that kind of thing usually happens. But they said, hey, we want to go in and build a progressive web app. So they went in and did a bunch of things. They had an 84% decrease in the time to interact. So the time that it takes for their site to become usable for users dropped by 84%. That's a pretty significant drop. But the really sort of big one there was they said, hey, we're looking at how we get our users, right, and where our users are buying things. And so they said, hey, we want to send push notifications to our users. We want to be able to say, hey, there's a great sale on. You can get the skincare. And so we said to users, hey, this is interesting. And users were like, oh yeah, I'm willing to get these notifications. Getting these notifications, they saw an 8% conversion on their push notification. So if a user clicked on that notification, 8% of people actually spent money. Huh, okay. Now, it's not a total 8% increase in conversions, but like, that's still an increase that's still more money. More money is generally good, right? So they're making more money. Now, here's the interesting thing. A lot of the stuff that we're talking to, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today doesn't work on one particular browser. And it means that you don't necessarily get the sort of amazing experience, but the experience gets better because they really focused on the user experience. They went back to that slide that I said, I want you to remember that one slide. They said, hey, I want to make sure that this experience is really good. I want to focus on radically improving that experience. And that's what they did. Now, those users don't get the reliable and instant experience that you get with service workers and some of the other stuff, but they saw a 53% increase in mobile sessions for iOS. So even though these users didn't get that instant performance boost, they still got a better experience. And they saw a 17% increase in conversions. So even though iOS, Safari, doesn't necessarily have all these things today, they still had a better experience. So by focusing on the experience and progressively enhancing your site, it's actually a really good thing to do. Lyft launched a progressive web app. They wanted to be able to say, hey, we've got this whole experience. You don't have to install our app to be able to go and request a car and do all this stuff. You can just go do it quickly and easily by going to ride.lyft.com, and you can go do it today if you try it out on your phone. And it works. It's a beautiful experience. So this is something that there are lots of companies who are doing this. Now, I'm going to go back to that point about sort of the iOS, the just browser experience and building. But the key thing to remember is that progressive web apps are progressive. Like, that progressive is there kind of for a reason. It's making the experience better as the device gets better, as it supports more things. So focusing on that end user experience is really the most important thing. Now, it's all really awesome, and like most of these folks all started from scratch, which is kind of awesome when you're starting greenfield. Yay, you've got lots of opportunity when you're starting greenfield, but you can't always start in a greenfield experience where you're just starting all over again. So there's a couple of things that I'll talk about over the next little bit about how you can do this and how you can start today and just add some of these features in, and why it isn't sort of necessarily a whole rewrite required. Now, the first thing that's required, and Mariko is going to talk about this later, but is HTTPS. All right? HTTPS is absolutely required if you're going to use any of these features that we talk about today. How many folks are already using HTTPS? Yay! I like that number of hands. How many people are in progress for HTTPS? Okay, a couple. How many have no plans to do HTTPS? Yes, that's a good number of hands. I like no hands. Look, the first and most important thing is you need to have security. And Mariko's going to talk about why that is and some of the stuff that is really involved in that. But really that bit is the most crucial. If you haven't done that, you can't do anything else. So let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's required to make things reliable. And building that reliable experience, that fast, that sort of instant loading experience, it's all based on one thing, and that one thing is something called service workers. How many people have heard about service workers? All right, cool. How many of you have played with service workers? I'd expect a few. Okay, good. All right, good. So service workers, to me, are that one technology, like they're the Ajax piece, right? They're the XML HTTP request equivalent of Ajax. So if you think about the traditional web, right? Your device goes to the server sits there and responds, and you've got this thing in the way, right? This network. This network is awesome. It might be really fast, and it might be really frickin' slow. And if it's really slow, you're kind of screwed. You're just going to sit there and wait, and it's going to stop. But, and even worse, if you're offline, wah, wah, it doesn't work at all, right? But with service workers, you don't necessarily need to traverse the network. Service workers take the network out of the picture and allow you to go and say, I want to cache devices on my, or cache resources on my device. So we tend to describe service workers as a client-side proxy written in JavaScript. It's a bit of a mouthful. I like to think of it, as something that allows me to control the network and a programmable cache that allows me to control a cache. It's different than the HTTP cache where I don't know what's in there, I don't know how long it's going to last. The browser might be like, haha, I've thrown you out, even though you just used it a second ago. It's a programmable cache that I've got complete control over. So that means that the service worker can say, hey, I'm going to go get these resources, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, whatever, and I'm going to stick it in that cache so that it is always there. And instead of having to go to the network to get it, I can now go to the cache and get it. Now, instead of having to deal with network latency, slow networks, non-existent networks, I can take the network out of the picture completely, and I can do whatever I want and supply any kinds of things I want. So it's pretty awesome. It gives us a lot of power. Now, Jeff's going to go into a lot more about service workers and how you can implement them and some easier ways to implement them. I'll talk a little bit about some of the different caching strategies, just briefly, that you can use so you can sort of go, oh, that's kind of cool. So the first one is cache falling back to network. So the page makes a request, goes to the cache, tries to get it from cache. If it's not there, goes to the network, grabs it, and returns it to the page. Now, if it is in the cache, it gives it back. You've got a response time in the single-digit milliseconds on most devices, right? You try and go to the network, you're at least 30, 40 milliseconds for any request. So now, things are just coming back just super fast. The cache falling back to network is one strategy you can use. This is great for things that don't change often. Maybe your static resources, or maybe your base level stuff, your HTML and CSS that you're going to update later, but realistically, this stuff, we're just going to serve this. The next one is network falling back to cache. This is good for things that you need to have up to date at all times. First you go to the network, try and get it from the network. Network's not responding, so then you go to the cache, and you get it from there. Now, this is great, like I said, for things that you need that have to be up to date. But here's the crappy thing about that. You have to wait for the network to fail. Now, in most cases, it takes about 60 seconds for the network to fail. So the user's going to sit there for 60 seconds. I didn't make you wait 60 seconds. But that was an awkward pause, right? Don't make the user wait for 60 seconds. Use this one judiciously. Pick the way to use it. Up-to-date information. But then they get the updated stuff right away. Think when you open up Gmail or when you open up any of your other apps on your device, that's what happens. You see the stuff from the last time it synced, but then a second later, you get all the latest stuff and you're like, great, awesome. If you're not online, you still have that old data that you can go and reply to that email from your mom. I'm bad at that. You can go and do those things so that you've got all of that stuff, and it's just going to sit there. The user has a good experience, but you have to make 2 requests. So it's a little bit more work for us, but it's an amazing user experience. Now, generic fallback. Go and try and get it from cache. Oh, not there. Go and try and get it from the network. Not there. Now I'm going to go back to the cache, and I'm going to ask for my generic thing. And I'm going to put up the generic thing. This is great for things like avatars, like maybe user images. But my favorite use case for this is actually there's a newspaper in the UK that uses this. If you hit their site and you're offline, instead of saying dinosaur or please come back later or sorry you're offline, screw you, that kind of thing, they give you a crossword puzzle to play. So now you get a game to play. You're staying on their site, you're playing the game, all of a sudden the network comes back and says, hey, the network's back, we've got this content for you. Do you want it now or do you want to keep playing the game? They've kept you in their sandbox. They've kept you engaged. They've kept you playing in their stuff, and then they give you what you had originally asked for. So you've got that really great experience, and they keep you hooked in there, like give you a nice little hug, and you feel all nice and happy. So it's a really cool use for that. You can also use this for, okay, maybe you don't want to put the game up, but you want to just say, hey, we're offline right now, we can't show you anything, we'll be right back, and keep checking. So generic fallback is a really good one. Now, Jeffy is going to talk about Workbox.js, so I'm just going to say there's a cool thing called Workbox.js. All right, I'm going to skip that one. So, fast. Being sure that you're loading that content. Taking the network out of the picture is really important. But let's talk about the engaging stuff. That's the other really neat piece of this. Being able to add your app to the home screen, being able to send web push notifications, takes those web apps to that next step. So, let's first talk about the add to home screen stuff. In order to add to an app to the home screen, one of the things that you need to have is a manifest file. And I know this is kind of hard to read on this screen, but a manifest file is a simple JSON file that defines data that the browser needs to know about your app in order to add it to the home screen. Things that it can't necessarily find out by looking in the meta tags or the document title and that kind of thing. But it says, hey, if you're going to add this to the home screen, I need to know a couple of things. So for example, I need to know what you're called so I can know what to put the label underneath your icon. I need to know what icon to use. Now, I'll give you a little hint here. I just used a 48 by 48 pixel icon. The current recommended best practice is to use a 512 by 512 pixel icon at a minimum. Now, if you're like me and you're not a designer and you don't care if something gets scaled down from 512 to 512 and how it looks when it gets scaled down to 48 by 48 or whatever size it's needed for your device, then that's fine. But if you're someone whose hair stands up on the back of their neck when icons get resized and things don't look pixel perfect, then that's just an array. You can add those yourself. You can go hand tweak all of your icons. At a minimum, you need the 512 by 512. Beyond that, have at it. Essentially, you want increments of 48 pixels. Then, that icon is also used here on the home screen, on the splash screen. So when you're launching, and it uses the long name for the splash screen, and then it uses the background color to set that background color. So you can choose how you want that splash screen to look while your app is loading. And then you can specify what page you want the app to start at, right? So that maybe you have one specific entry point for your app. So being able to specify that, so no matter where the user adds your app from, they're always going to enter into one specific place. You can set the display to standalone or full screen, or I can't remember what the other one is, but I think it's like the browser. But standalone looks just like you would expect a full screen app to look, but you still have the time and the other icons in the top, and you still have the bottom stuff there, the home button and all that. If you do full screen, which is great for things like games, where you want every single pixel possible, it'll use everything possible. So that's great for games. And then you can also set the orientation, because maybe you've got some game that you're building that you want to be able to force the user into landscape mode. So being able to set that orientation. And then finally, you can set the theme color, and the theme color just sets this color up here. So when the user goes to switch the task switcher. So quick, easy way to be able to go and add those in. And you just have to, in your HTML page, put a link to that manifest file. All right? And that just tells the browser, hey, this is awesome. Now that's supported today in Chrome, in Opera, Firefox, Samsung browser, and Microsoft Edge is supporting it as well. All right? So supported in most places. For iOS, you still need to use the traditional meta tag stuff, so you can still go put those in. We recommend folks do those because it does make that experience work for them as well. So that's where that works. Now, what about the prompt to install thing, right? That experience of, hey, I want that banner to show up, so I want people to do this. Now, it's really important that we look for essentially three things, all right? There's no today way that you can get it to prompt yourself. There's no way you can say, hey, I want this to show up. Now imagine if you could, it could get really annoying because if you went to every website you went to, it showed up just randomly, it might piss you off, right? So that's why we're being kind of careful about when it shows up and how it shows up. But today we look for three things. One, we look for that manifest. You have to have a manifest defined with the 512 pixel icon. Two, you have to have a service worker, so the app works offline. Because to add it to the home screen, we want users to be able to trust that clicking that icon, it'll work, or they'll at least get some experience. And then third is a level of engagement. So we want to see that the user is using your app. It's not that they've come to the app, they've looked at it once, and they've been like, oh, okay, gone, never coming back here again. Right? So there's a level of engagement that we're looking for. So those are the three things that we'll look for, and then you'll be able to go and we'll pop that up. Web push notifications are kind of the other one that I think are awesome and also a little scary. Because how many of you have seen on YouTube or on Google Maps, when you first load the page, it says, hey, we want to send you notifications. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck? What kind of notifications do you want to send me? No. Right? If you say no, if you click block, the only way to unblock those is to go into the site settings in the browser and clear that block. Everybody in here can probably figure out how to do that. Your family and friends probably can't. So using notifications responsibly is really important. If you're going to go and prompt with that notification, don't just say, hey, I'm going to send you notifications. Because people are going to tell you, fuck off, bluntly. All right? So don't do that. Do it in a responsible way. Tell them what kind of notifications they're going to get. Why do they want them? Let them choose whether they're going to opt in or not. All right? And with notifications, the browser doesn't even have to be open. That's the awesome thing. Notifications will work whether the browser's closed, open, whatever. They work in the same way that standard notifications work. So you can be like, hey, I'm going to send the user this, and they're great, they're good to go. Now, notifications are built on service workers. One of the cool things about service workers is service workers are all event-based. So they're sitting there in memory when your page is open, they're doing their thing. When you close the page, they go to idle, and they just sit there quietly. And then eventually they get terminated, and they go out of memory. So they're not using any system resources, they're not doing anything to consume your battery, to consume your network usage, or anything like that if they're not in use. That means that that's pretty awesome, because you can send a notification. What happens is, the notification gets sent to the OS goes, oh, this goes to the browser. The browser wakes up just that service worker. The service worker goes, whoo, oh wait, I'll handle that notification. Does its little thing, shows the notification, and then goes back to sleep. So you're not using any resources. You're not having to keep a socket open. You don't have to handle connections back to your server or anything like that. Because the way it works, I think actually I have it on the next slide. Yeah. So from your site, you hit an endpoint, this magic sort of endpoint. Each browser essentially has its own endpoint. And you get that endpoint address when the user subscribes. So you send the notification to the endpoint. And then the endpoint does a little bit of magic and sends it to the device. The device wakes up the service worker, and the service worker shows the notification. So again, you don't have to worry about, hey, I'm keeping any sockets open, I'm using resources, I'm not going to kill my user's battery, they're not going to get mad at me. The only thing they're going to get mad at me is sending too many notifications or dumb notifications. All right? So service workers give us a huge amount of pretty cool things. Carnival launched notifications. So they did a really interesting thing. They didn't really implement what I would consider a progressive web app, but they used some of the progressive web app technologies to enhance their experience. They just made their experience better. What they did was they added notifications. They allow users to, their customers to go in and say, hey, I want to put a hold on a cruise. And you can put a hold on a cruise for 7 days. You don't have to put any money down, but you can reserve that room. It is guaranteed to be yours for the next 7 days until you give them money or the 7 days are up. Well, they said, why don't we say to users, hey, we'll let you know in 7 days or in 6.5 days that your hold is about to expire. And we'll send you that notification. They had a 24% opt-in rate, right? They used to send emails. How many people open the emails that you sign up for and get some, right? Like the opt-in rate for emails is abysmal. So opt-in rate of 24%. Of that 24%, of the people who subscribed, 42%, almost half of them, opened the notification, right? Normal on email kind of thing like that is in the single digits for click-through rates. So 40%, 42% click-through rate. They haven't shared what their actual conversion rates with us have been, but the fact that users can be like, oh yeah, hey, this is pretty awesome, is amazing. So showing push notifications, you just have to add within your service worker an event listener. And you say, hey, self.addEventListener push. So you're listening for a push notification, you get your data, and then you can say self.registration.showNotification, and you just show the notification. And you can do all kinds of cool things, like you can add the buttons so that the user can maybe like or retweet or confirm a reservation that they've got, or all sorts of different things. So those notifications are really powerful, and they're getting much more powerful as more features are added. So we have to show the fun partner slide, but around the world, the number of people who are getting in on this and doing some really interesting, cool things is pretty amazing. Everything from just fun little companies to huge giant companies, The Guardian in the UK, The Washington Post, Forbes, like Twitter, all sorts of big, small, fun companies are doing some interesting stuff. So this is your opportunity to really sort of jump in at the front of this and try to take advantage of some of these things. Build out some really cool experiences. Think about some of the fun ones that you want to go do and how you can improve your user experience. So with that, I will say thank you. I will either tweet this link out or we'll get this link out to the folks here. This is a link to all of the slides from our Progressive Web App Roadshow, which goes into a lot more detail about all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. It also includes mine and all of our secret speaker notes. So if you want to go do this presentation on your own, you can actually go and do that. Which, hey, I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing that first time, but it's good if you want to go share this information with your team or anything like that, to be able to go out and check all this stuff out. So with that, thank you very much. I'm going to have Jeff come up and set up this.